Okay, we are fast running out of time. We've got less than 5 minutes left, but I wanted to put this question to perhaps Fatih first. Innovation is making renewables more cost competitive, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the midstream, and I'm talking about the respective national grids in the OECD countries and how renewable power generation installed capacity feeds in to that national grid. Because as I understand it, there are some very real problems in terms of managing how they feed into the national grid and meeting especially peak power usage, especially when we're talking about legacy grids in the OECD countries. How do you reconfigure and retool that?
In fact, this is another excellent question. This is the most vulnerable, if I may say so, part of the renewable energies. When the share of renewables in a country's electricity mix is higher than a certain percentage, then we may well see that in the absence of wind not blowing, sun is not there, we may have problems. Or in the issues of having too much of renewables, not enough electricity demand, we may have problems. Therefore, we have to find how we will integrate the renewables in the best economic and secure way to our electricity systems. And this is not an easy task. Again, we have working very hard in the IEA. We have a system integration work, how we integrate the renewables the best, because you have to look at the system operators need to be on top of their work in order to make the best optimal dispatch of different energy sources. Second, you have to make the grids much more stronger. Third, you have to, on the demand side, you have to take some measures so that the consumption of electricity, when it peaks, is in line with when you have the most of the renewables during the time of the day. So this needs a new design of the electricity markets with the increasing share of renewables. This is a major challenge for the renewables that we are taking very seriously.
Is this an issue, or is this a talking point in a US context, Sharif, when you look at the legacy assets, when you look at the broader national grid across the US, how does renewable power slot into that, especially during peak period times? You care to comment on that?
When it comes to the grid, we're not one country, we're 50 states. So it's really a very, very challenging process to try to figure out how to do it from a centrally designed system. So I think you start by pricing carbon at the right price. And then I think you incentivize research and development, which is the most important thing to develop. Because as Fatih said, the technological revolution is happening everywhere. Renewables, natural gas, oil, everything. It affects everything. So you don't stop technology, you don't stop innovation. He's right, the grid in the United States has enormous potential, but it also has enormous difficulties in terms of making it work on a national basis. So I think the way you do it is you let entrepreneurs do it, and a lot of them will lose money in the process. I mean, Tesla is a wonderful company, but it loses money. It has the potential to revolutionize the way electricity is used and the way electricity is stored and distributed, but it loses money. How much money and who would subsidize it and to what level, it's very difficult to say. So you've got to let, as much as possible, outside forces do this for you and incentivize them in the right way to do it. So first, price carbon and price the real cost of production. And second, incentivize research and development, which is one thing that we've lost in the last decade.
So subjected to market forces, and then rationalization should come.
With gentle intervention where it's needed, because the market doesn't do everything.
Right. We are running out of time, but let me just wrap it up by asking both Fatih and Sharif a question about the future of nuclear energy, the future of nuclear power, because the way I see it, the world is starkly divided on the merits of nuclear power generation. Japan, very, very polarized as a nation. Taiwan, wants to abolish it by 2025, and yet there are new projects coming online in the US and the UK. Is there a future for nuclear power, Fatih?
Now, when we look at the year 2015, you may be surprised, but this was a golden year for nuclear power because 10 new reactors started, the highest number of nuclear reactors starting since almost 3 decades. But why it is happening? Out of 10, 8 was in China alone, 1 in India and 1 in Russia. So as a result of that, we don't expect a big nuclear renaissance because it is mainly going to happen in China. About half of the new nuclear power plants will be in China, other half the rest. We may see a few nuclear power plants built in the United States and some in Europe, but given the huge financial first down payment for nuclear, huge capital cost, and in the absence of government support, we don't see today a major renaissance for nuclear power, even though it may be very helpful to reduce the emissions. But when we look at the picture now, it doesn't seem that it will, basically for the finance and the point that you made before, in some countries, the public acceptance issues, nuclear doesn't seem to have a renaissance today. And if there's a carbon price, it may definitely help. But as I said, I don't believe it is a matter of today or tomorrow.
Again, price is the final arbiter here. Sharif, is there a future for nuclear energy?
I think it's just a matter of cycles. 8 years ago, we didn't know about shale. Now it's changed the world dramatically. One day we'll find out limitations of renewable. Do they work in urban centers? Can you really put solar power in major cities on a significant scale to make a difference? Is it going to stop somewhere? Who knows? So nuclear could very well come back at some point. Today, it's not the case, but 10 years from today, who knows?
Right, we have to wrap this up, but please forgive me, I just sort of very, very final thoughts and final expectations. We are seeing real momentum with the Paris climate change deal, Fatih. We've got COP22 next month in Marrakesh in Morocco. Is this really a platform where we will see some finalization in terms of the discussions around financing, funding, and the technical aspects of getting these countries on board and getting them towards their NDCs?
So there is a strong momentum, political momentum. This is very, very important. We had a Kyoto Agreement. Some of the colleagues I saw here who were part of it. After Kyoto Agreement, we need several decades it to be ratified. But for Paris, it took less than 1 year that it is ratified, Paris Agreement. So this gives you a signal. This gives us a signal that there's a political will, political momentum driven by many countries, including 2 largest emitters, United States and China. Therefore, this is very good. But in the COP22, having the expectation of solving the financing problem may be on the optimistic side, in my view. It will definitely be an important topic to discuss, but my expectations is more consolidating the Paris Agreement and discussing on the nation-determined contributions, the pledges of the countries, and try to firm them and hopefully increase the ambition there. But the financing solution may be on the optimistic side.
Sharif, expectations, is this going to be a consolidation of COP21 in Marrakesh next month?
Sorry, repeat it.
Sorry, your expectations for COP22 in Marrakesh and Morocco, is it going to really just fine-tune and consolidate what happened in Paris and the Paris Climate Change Agreement?
I hope so, and I think so also, because for the first time, you're seeing on a global basis a convergence of opinions in terms of this is necessary and needs to be done. It happens to suit the purposes of a lot of different constituencies at the same time. So a lot of different countries in different areas of the world see the emergency, and at the same time a lot of major energy companies are morphing into new forms of production that would actually benefit from carbon pricing and from doing something going forward. So I expect the victim on a long-term basis will be coal, and it's kind of like 20 years ago when people started saying cigarettes are bad for you. So the first step will be coal is bad for you, and then slowly we'll move away from that. And as Fatih said earlier, it's still in evolution because it's not enough, but it's a good start.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts today, Fatih Birol and Sharif Suki. Right, we're going to end that discussion there. Let me just reiterate some of the key highlights. And what really struck me is that renewable energy and the march towards carbon neutrality is happening. It is real. And in Fatih's words, it's not a love story, it's not an idealistic vision anymore, it really is happening. And I think when you look at decarbonisation, oil and gas companies and coal miners for that matter are sitting up and taking note. And I think what we really need to see now in the longer term perhaps is a price for carbon so that it can better inform those investment decisions as we move forward towards decarbonisation and 2050 and carbon neutrality. Well, I hope you found this discussion interesting. We can continue discussing during the break and over coffee. Fatih and Sharif will remain with us, I'm sure, and we can continue the conversation. Thank you very much indeed for listening.
Indeed, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Now we have 3 more exciting sessions lined up for the day, ladies and gentlemen, and of course we'd like to invite you to help yourselves to dessert just on the foyer. The next session will start at 2:20. At 2:20, a photograph, if you will. Would you like to take a photograph together? At 2:20 will be the next session, ladies and gentlemen, right here in the room, okay? So bring your desserts. As you go out, your coffee and your desserts, we'd like to invite you to bring it back within this ballroom as we commence with the next session at 2:20. Thank you.